Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to our 108th episode of Svitlana's Smart Moves with Svitlana Demchenko. What are we talking about in 2025?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be back to making Smart Moves episodes in 2025. We just witnessed a really huge event, the World Rapid and Blitz Chess Championships in New York. And on the show, we have a bit of a tradition every year where we have a collection of the best tactics from this World Championship. And this year, I'm modifying it a bit, so it will be called the top blunders of the World Rapid and Blitz.
Ooh, nice.
So it will be fun for you to not only watch, but also try to solve some of these positions yourself.
I'm happy to do so. Let's dive right into it, I would say.
Yeah, so we have to start with Magnus and Nepo.
Oh,
These two had a very unique final match, and this was a position from game four of
mhm.
this final match for the championship title, which Nepo needed to win to force the tiebreak. Magnus was playing with white, and he makes a blunder with bishop to f4. And I want you to try to understand why this is a blunder and what type of combinations you would see for black.
Okay, I think I'm not sure if I remember the game, but there was a crazy shenanigan with the knight at one point. But first of all, why is this a blunder? So this is good because I thought like, I know this position. I can tell you it's a knight to e3, but okay, you're approaching it from a different way. So, of course, if the queen takes, oh yeah, okay, so now I get it already. So the queen has to be lured away from the square b7. If the queen takes, then the rook can take on b7, I guess, and this looks like a dangerous mate position. But as I already gave away the secret, but probably most of you have seen it too, the spectacular move, is it even working or am I wrong? Wait a second. What happens if you play knight e3? That that then white
For now, you would get
checkmates.
mated on
Exactly.
b8. Yeah.
So
You have the right idea. I think that's the hardest move to spot. So if you've already seen,
so you take on g2 with the rook.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay, okay, okay. Because
And
that
I
gives a
think,
check and then you have to act on that. Nice.
yeah, and that was one of the moves that Magnus missed. I'm sure he saw Rook G2, but then this is the point where you have to make this big choice. He probably calculated something like this with the Rook to G8 and then the king just running away,
Hmm.
and this is fine. But he probably missed the fact that there is knight to E3 right away, and that sort of cuts off the F file if you take with this pawn, and it makes the king mated in the corner,
Yeah.
just like this. So there was this was like a really amazing example. Maybe I don't know if anybody else, if you were calculating this position, there's a few other moves. There's like queen to g4, there's d4, all of that, but only knight to e3 is the one that wins.
That is, I would say, one of the most spectacular moves of the whole
Yes.
championship because yeah, that is just like, especially it makes it even more amazing because yeah, Nepomniachtchi and Carlsen were playing. So
Yes.
what to say? It's just
And this was one of
amazing.
the decisive games that actually forced this tiebreak. And I realized I didn't mention queen to takes e3.
Yeah,
That one loses because of a really nice d4 tactic.
an in between pawn move.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolute, absolute beauty. Thank you for showing this again. It is now I know even the back story about the background story about this.
Yeah. So it made the score a tie, and then it led us to the final controversial finish of the World Blitz Championships.
Mhm.
But we can also look at some other interesting blunders
Let's
because
do
I'm
so.
sure that this one was definitely the biggest one. And this one comes from the Rapid Championship, and it was honestly one of the key deciding games for the eventual World Rapid Champion,
Mm.
the young 18-year-old Volodar Morzin, who had an incredible run. And in this game, this was Pragg with white against Morzin. It was very close to uh, to actually a turnaround and to having a different winner. So in the game, he played Rook b3, King e2. And how would you evaluate this position? Would you rather play white? Would you rather play black? And what would you play as white?
Well, first of all, I just have to mention that how crazy is that the black king is attacking the white king? Like I
Right.
mean, what is happening here? This is so much fun. So just alone for that braveness, I prefer Black's position. Of course, I want Black to win this, but I'm not 100% sure if that is even working. So f6, if you just leave f6 as it is, then that might become dangerous, and even the Black King is in danger too, a little bit, of course.
Hmm.
I'm not sure how to mate him, but maybe there is an option. Yeah, that's I not a clear
Okay.
evaluation, but
Yeah, well, the evaluation is that it's actually white who's winning at this
it
exact
is.
moment because Black's king is in more danger than White's.
Uh-huh.
But as I said, it turned around really quickly. So what's the type of move that you made for White?
Well, I don't think that Rook b2 is a good idea because that might run into checkmate patterns itself.
You should
But
have told that to Pragg because he
yeah.
played Rook 1 to B2.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Yes. Yeah. That looks difficult, but who knows? What else to play for white here? I wonder what would be a good idea. The bishop probably has to stay there for now. What about okay, let's not checkmate the king. What about f7? What happens?
Yeah, f7 is one of the moves that was winning for White,
Ah, okay,
and
good.
it's just to save this pawn and to make this rook go away from
Yes.
this g file. But the main idea in the position is to actually reroute this bishop from e3 to g3. Because once the bishop makes it to g3, this whole g file is closed, and then White can go for all of these checkmate ideas. Like you
How
can,
funny.
shuffle the rooks a bit and then actually have them mate.
Yeah, f4 is even a good move, right? f4. Ah,
Yeah,
okay, that's not
or
working.
something like this. Just
Yeah.
attack this bishop eventually, and then it's Black King who is actually
Ah,
has
how
a mating threat.
funny.
But this bishop idea was maybe not so obvious, and he was sort of trying to make more forced moves, and that's why he makes this check. But after king to f1, it completely turns around. This was one of the biggest and the most deciding blunders of the World
Mm-hmm.
Rapid Championship because White cannot keep checking because there's the sneaky bishop that came out of nowhere, and actually there's a checkmate threatened on g1 that cannot really be protected.
So that is funny. That is.
Even if you protect it like this, there's no.
Oh, yeah, I just thought
Yeah,
like,
so
yeah, okay, this didn't cross my mind. Yeah, of course. You can easily. What a checkmate. Wow.
yeah. And well, he had to sacrifice the exchange, and then Volodar eventually won this game.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that
But
that
these two were
hurts.
the biggest ones. These, I think, were the biggest blunders
Yeah.
that we saw in these two championships that were really important for the final standings. So let's also take a look at some of the women's games. This one was probably one of the most shocking ones, but we know that anything can happen in Blitz. So this one was Muzachuk Maria with white and Mu Iris with black. Actually, no, we'll do it from the white side.
Okay.
So the bishop took on d5, and here black makes a mistake and recaptures incorrectly. She plays c takes d5.
Mm-hmm.
It was better to play bishop takes e5 first and then recapture like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But what do you think is the difference here, and what move comes to mind for you for white?
Well, everything screams that knight b5, it looks good for several reasons. It attacks the queen, it probably attacks a7 as well, it gives space for the bishop on d2. It just looks like a terrific move. Now the question
Yeah,
is,
that's exactly what happened
yeah.
in the game, and then checkmate on c2 followed. It's okay.
Oh man, I can't believe it. Really?
You fell for it too.
Because it just screams so much.
You just
I
lost.
probably would have still, I would have seen the checkmate, and then, I cannot resist. I have to play knight to b5. It just
Yeah,
looks too good. This bishop is hidden so well. It's not even hidden on h7. It's just on
yeah,
g6, and you don't. That is crazy. That is
yeah.
crazy. Wow.
And you don't see it coming. And it happens to even the best of players. This was Maria
Maria,
Muzicek, a
yeah.
former world women's champion.
Yeah, and it just like for this reason, I also assumed that white will just be winning. I met Maria 2 years ago, and one of her last games, I even messaged her, sent her an email because she had such an absolute spectacular sacrifice in a game similar to this position, and she was like, "Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a crazy game." So I really was just all in with my mind of that white will win. Wow. Okay, now back to
Yeah.
this. That was funny. What should white play here now? Probably. Can you take the bishop first and then go knight b5? I cannot live
You
without.
can, but
Yeah.
there's something even stronger.
Okay. Hmm. Well, I'm thinking about f5 as well to just block.
That's a good move.
Um.
F5 is the one that I'm looking for,
Oh,
actually.
okay. Cool.
So yeah, if this, then definitely we have knight to d5 and the same ideas work. But even if the bishop takes,
Then we just
we're
take. We
we still eliminate
exchange
that guy.
our.
We
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to see him anywhere close. And then
Exactly.
knight to d5. And the thing about this position is that it looks, sure, it looks like an attack on the queen. But then if you look at all of the squares, I highlighted them for that purpose, the queen actually has nowhere to go other than back to b8.
Wow.
And once it does, then queen to c4 actually threatens a lot of stuff. So you have to give
That's
up the
yeah.
queen.
That seals the deal almost. My gosh.
Otherwise, there's knight to e7 mate. So f5 was really, really strong, and
Oh
the
my
game probably would have
goodness.
ended just like this after the queen would have nowhere to go.
That is fantastic. What a find. Yeah. How far or like how far apart from a clear winning position to a checkmate in one. That is
Yeah.
quite dramatic. Wow.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Next
Yeah, but
one.
definitely
Yeah.
it's so heartbreaking to lose like this
Oh, yes.
when it happens to you. So here's another quite simple tactic for you to solve. What would you play here for black after the move knight to d3?
Okay, let's take a quick look. I hope you guys at home enjoy this too and look at the games in the description. There's the ChessBase news article. You can replay them. You can save them in your database to look at some nice tactics on your own. And yeah, let's learn something here. So, what would I play as black here? Well, now the move, of course, cut off the queen from the pawn on d2. Not nice. So maybe I would try to keep on defending it, which would be queen to c3. But that's too obvious, of course. There must be.
Queen c3 makes sense that it defends, but there's a lot better moves available.
So what happens if you take on d5 with the knight?
That's a good point, and that should be the first thing to calculate. You know, all the captures is something good to get out of the way first, and that's the right move.
Mm,
So
that's
what happens
beautiful.
after c takes?
So we now take the rook on a4.
Yeah,
Now we take a b1 with check. And I would say we just get a queen, and that's all she wrote.
exactly, and that's it. So in just for other alternatives, maybe the only other move that keeps advantage for black is something like e5. It's still not ideal, but at least it threatens this. So this pawn cannot be taken, so white has to come up with stuff like this, and the white has to find the saving move, rook to d2.
Ooh.
And then after this, I just looked at this line and I was really not sure why, but this is actually more or less equal, or just slightly better for black.
Wow.
Because these two pawns are just so strong and the knight is not able to deal with them very well.
Yeah, if they're on the 5th row already, that is
Yeah.
that's rough.
Yeah, but e5 was
Interesting.
probably the only other one that would keep the advantage and keep up these threats. So what you did with knight d5 is perfect, and that's the best move. And then after queen to d2, the important point is that there's knight c3 with an unpleasant fork.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, oh, I forgot to say that this was Zagnidze against Lei Ting-J. So
Yeah,
Ting-J
strong.
eventually won this game with the black pieces.
Strong players as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this one. This is back to the men's section. This is Nepomniachtchi against So, the semi-final match. And this example goes to show that there's a lot of blunders that can happen even in an endgame when everything seemingly looks very calm.
Hmm.
So white goes f6, and in this position, black had many ways to make a draw. For example, with like rook to b6, attack the pawn, try to keep everything solid. And what he did also looks like a pretty decent move with knight to e6. But what should white do now?
Interesting. Yeah, it looks like there is something off here because of the bishop, the rook, the c5 pawn, the check. There
Yeah.
is a couple of things which something cannot be. Okay, is it that simple? We just give a check on e7.
Yes, that's the start.
The king
Um,
cannot move to f8 because
right.
then we would take the knight, and
Yes.
that's an easy win for white.
And if king to d8?
Exactly. So this is it the same story? Actually, we take the knight and then we take on c5 and then f7.
Not yet,
Nah,
because
it's not
there's
working. Yeah,
f4.
there's a check. So we play f7 first. We get the
Yeah.
queen. That's it. That's the joke. Or yeah, the king cannot even
Yes.
go there. We don't.
Yes,
Nice.
exactly. But it doesn't make a difference. F8 wins too.
Yeah.
So it was just a pretty unexpected endgame tactic that came out of nowhere in a very equal position. And by the way, rook f7 wins too, but it's more complicated. You'll
Hmm.
still have to play it on and try to promote the pawn. But yeah, rook e6, you found it very quickly.
And that happened. That happened in the game.
Yeah, and that was the
Nice.
end of the game, and Nepomniachtchi won as white.
Wow. Yeah, he had a good
This
time.
one was pretty crazy. We'll see another we'll see and solve another endgame blunder. This
Oh
was,
yes, I remember that one though.
you know, this one. This was
Yes.
Bach against Carlsen, and we begin with a completely drawn endgame. But it's always the ones that you least expect. So king to e2, king g5, just normal moves. And now Bach blunders. He allowed Magnus to pick up a free pawn. He played bishop to e1 and probably just missed knight to c1. Simple fork. If you play something like a3, then the
Hmm.
position is equal, even though I agree that it's probably easier to play with this really strong knight. But he plays bishop here, and Magnus just gets a free pawn. Everything seems good. What do you think about this pawn endgame? Do you think it's very easy to win, or
For
it,
Magnus, yes, but apparently not.
right?
But yeah, it looks the king side looks
What's
very difficult to break through because of yeah, there's just two pawns in front of each other. There's no coming through. So both kings have to go to the queen side and
right?
try
Yeah,
to
these are taken.
yeah.
You're right.
You just have to push through there. Yeah, it's probably winnable, but I think it's difficult. I wouldn't manage. I would probably lose as black.
No, no, I'm sure you would manage. I'm
That's what
sure
they
you
all
would
say,
manage.
but I know myself better.
No, just said the exact correct plan to bring the king to the
That
king
doesn't mean
side to the queen
anything.
side because the other side is blocked. So we brought the king to the correct side. That's
Mhm.
what Magnus did in the game as well. And then a couple more moves followed. Of course, you want to push these pawns. He pushed them like this, and everything has been going smoothly.
And now it
What
is the Zugzwang idea. Yeah, so from now I
what
know
should
it.
black not play?
Yeah, black played b6 now, which is like, it's a tremendously good idea, but probably black should have played b5 easily, right? Is it that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So correct approach, you just
Mouse
play
slip
b5
maybe.
and you're up a pawn. And this is a win not only for Magnus, but just a very
Yeah.
classic textbook win of a pawn endgame.
Now that even I would maybe win, but who
But
knows?
b6, why is this bad?
So the king goes to a4,
Yeah,
and now of course you can just take a pawn and you black wins. But unfortunately it is a stalemate
yeah,
because the pawn is taking the square on a5. Very beautiful.
exactly. And it saves the draw with a stalemate trick. It was also interesting that you basically only have you only have these two moves. So you
True.
choose either between king b5,
Wow.
b5 or b6. If you play with the
Right.
king, that's another thing you should not play because this actually wins for white. It doesn't even just draw. it wins for white, and because of a very like particular reason. So it's actually, do you know what triangulation is?
Yes.
And that's how I would call it at least, is that the kings are trying to fight for this like c5 square. Like you don't want to play king c3, black playing king c5.
Hmm.
So you just keep the king around and only then you advance and get the king out of there.
So
So
when the king
this one would
goes,
be winning, of
ah, yeah,
course.
yeah,
But
yeah. When the king goes to c7, then you push the pawn forward, and then you just pick up the pawn on e4. Okay.
yes, yes, exactly. But I think nobody would play king c6, but also there was just no moves. There were no other moves to than this. But I think what happened in the game is way cooler, and White saved this draw with a stalemate trick.
Nice.
Okay. And yeah, we'll have this as a final example. Uh, this is Nakamura against Adriansian. So
Never heard.
two very strong players as well in the World Rapid Championship. And Black's position already looks difficult with all of White's pieces that are so ready to attack. So let's try to calculate the continuation and what you would do after Black's blunder of f6.
Okay. Hmm. What could we do here? Yeah, sorry, I was already like calculating like black plays h5, then we just give a check on f6 and the king goes back, and then we take on g6 with our knight, but there is
Mhm.
more to it. So looking at knight taking on g6, I wonder if there is something to it.
Yeah, you have very good
Or
intuition. I think you calculate in the right direction right away.
yeah, but I'm also wondering if black can even take check. Is this one? So another idea is a bit more straightforward, but I'm not sure how much it is good. So the queen goes to g3. The knight
Mhm.
gets taken. We take the rook. The king takes, and the queen takes on g6. But then just the bishop goes to f7, and nothing is happening, sadly.
Yeah, well, Queen G3 is definitely a move to calculate, but this one is actually winning. So you're doing great here. You win a pawn at least, and then you win this one. So this is
Oh, you
great.
do actually win a piece. Wow.
No, this is awesome, and you probably even win more if you yeah, there's gonna be even more checks. I think that one is totally winning.
Oops.
But then there's Queen to E4, and that's the issue. It protects the knight and it
Ah,
protects on G6. So that doesn't work. And also a reason that Rook G3 with a similar idea doesn't work is not because of takes. Taking is totally fine, and then you end up winning this piece like this
that's nice.
eventually. But there instead there's G5. So this doesn't fully solve
Oopsie.
the issue.
Yeah, now white loses, I think.
It's probably even,
Oh,
and
wow.
White
Okay.
like he hasn't lost any material yet,
Okay.
so no problem there. But you're right that it's good to consider other alternatives, and you're almost like forced to calculate this knight to G6 variation. So
Yeah, so let's do this. Let's just take and let's take a look at
okay,
what,
and it is the right move.
yeah,
I
it
probably already
must.
gave it away that knight g6 is the one, but it is more about how you continue as well, because it's not too obvious, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. So, okay, you already had the mouse on the pawn, but
Oh
I
no,
don't,
that was
yeah,
not true.
that wouldn't make any sense. Now, I think you have to give a check with
Yeah,
the rook, I guess. And
yes. Um,
then,
so the king can go to both here and here. If here, then we checkmate him right away.
mhm.
But let's say king to h7 first.
Okay,
And there's
so
only one move that wins here.
only one move. Wow.
Yep.
Mm, wow, it's that is fascinating because the queen cannot go to g4, neither to f5. Also,
Mhm.
c7 doesn't look very helpful.
You're right. Queen
So
c7, rook f7.
I wonder how we can get the queen to g6 in a different way.
And black is winning here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it just queen h? No, queen h4 maybe? It's too
It
slow,
doesn't threaten
right? No.
anything.
Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. What is winning here?
We need to like disrupt the coordination of black's pieces
I'm
in a way. Just an attacking
trying.
move.
Yeah, an attacking move. Oh, so is it? I'm also looking at e5, but that doesn't help either.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, what's happening?
So
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's actually not that obvious, but we want to play queen to c7,
Yeah.
but that doesn't work because the rook and the bishop are sort of helping each other. So
Okay, queen d6.
yes. So judging from like based on that point, we can play queen to d6, which maintains both of the threats, queen to c7, and also adds this new threat of queen to e7.
Hmm.
And the rook or the bishop have to go. Well, actually, definitely one of them has to go. Like let's say rook here. You have to defend the bishop if you don't want to just be down 2 pawns and also have your king mated. And then this queen to c7 idea actually wins because they're not working together anymore.
That is so crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And there's nothing
deep,
else that
actually.
black can do. Yeah.
Oh, what a shock.
But in the actual game, king to f7 happened.
Ah, okay, we're not done yet. So now I think queen c7 is the
Yeah.
must be the
Queen
winning
c7 is
move,
the
right?
only move. That's right. So then king to e8.
Now just,
And
yeah.
a couple of moves, well, two moves win, I would say. And it's not that straightforward, but you could try to guess.
Okay. Yeah, and just thought I thought like rook g7, but it seems that
Right.
either one of the pieces goes in between on f7.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, so
then
it's not rook
no,
g7.
it isn't. It is not
Mhm.
working. That is why am I taking so long for this? What is
No, it's
happening?
not an easy example. I left it for last.
That is so nice. Okay, I feel like queen, what happens? Queen b8 check, king goes up. Is that is that helping?
Yeah,
Queen
queen
g8
b8 is what he played
check.
in the game.
Yeah.
Queen d6 also wins, but I think it's really not
No.
straightforward with things like rook to d3 as an idea, which is pretty crazy, I would say, because queen d8 is not even mate.
Yeah.
But it wins because of like getting the rook there and then putting it back to g3 to force. So the queen is cutting off on the seventh rank, and then you force the king to go here. After which, even now, there's no like checkmate right away, but there is queen to h7 and checkmate
Jeez.
later.
Okay.
So it's really, I think queen d6 is a bit too subtle, especially with rook to d3.
Yeah.
But you said queen b8, which is good.
And now we
And
can give a check on g7.
no,
We
still
cannot.
not. Still not.
We give a
We'll
check
still
on
cover.
a7.
Yeah, and the reason why is actually crazy. So this is a whole like this is a maneuver that you give these checks only to come back to c7, and now guess why we took that pawn?
So the rook can go to a3. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
That is insane.
with a classic ladder mate.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
Very
he ended
beautiful
up
example.
even the black saved it was held it on for a little bit longer with this, and now rook a8 would not win because of well, honestly this still wins, but just a little bit less clear. Like you really don't want to go after that, even though you have up a pawn. Um, so instead, this queen to d6 move keeps coming back, and it's
Uh-huh.
just so good in this position, even though it's really not the most obvious one in all of these cases. But yeah, more checks followed, and then Nakamura ended up winning this game, and it was a really beautiful attack. And I thought some of these were, of course, some of these sacrifices were typical, but some of them made you think a little bit.
Especially this one, and I loved, yeah, and it is so good because kind of learned a new pattern. And this is why it is very important to watch all Svitlana's moves, 108 in a row now. That's the challenge for 2025. Because, there's this one little thing right? To take away the pawn, and you explained it very well, and this might make the difference in one of your personal chess games at one point. Great, great stuff. Thank you so much, Svitlana.